Hello, my video is going to be about Cassandra, which is a database made for really big data. So you all know what a relational database is. Those are the ones you query with SQL language. The relational databases are made to be used on a single machine. And this also makes it easy to query and get the data you want. As we saw in the exercises, you could solve any of the exercises with a single query. But this also has its limits on massive amount of data, because massive amount of data does not fit on a single machine. And that's why we have Cassandra, because Cassandra is built to be used on multiple machines, and it requires a lot of work to model the data in order to get the queries that you want and get the data you want. It's not as easy as with the relational database. But after you put all that work into it, you get really fast queries. You get almost infinite scalability with relation to how much data you can handle, and it works even though some of the servers you have crashes, which is also a really cool property. So now to how Cassandra works. So David already told you about a hash table in week 7. So a hash table works by that you have some values that you want to distribute across some buckets, and which is done using a hash function. And Cassandra works the same way, but instead of distributing across some buckets, it distributes across multiple machines. So here, for example, we have a few records over here on the left side that we use to apply this hash function at. And we choose the input we want to give to this hash function, which we choose to be the name here. And we learned that one hash function always gives the same output given the same input. So this means that if we apply the first record, it maybe goes to node 1 with Tina, but then we know that the other record with Tina also goes to node 1 because she has the same name. But maybe Joe goes to node 2. So now our application wants all the people with red hair, and the bad developer sees knows its data and knows that that people with red hair are on multiple machines. So it'll just ask all the machines if they have any people with red hair. But this is not the way you work in Cassandra. The thing is, you have to create these tables where you choose a primary key, and the primary key is the input for your hash function that Cassandra used to distribute the data across the nodes. And you derive the primary key from the query. So if we have the query that we want all the people with red hair, then we set the primary key to be the hair color. So now if we distribute these records, Tina with red hair goes to node 1, and then we know that Joe with red hair also goes to node 1, but maybe Tina with black hair goes to node 2. And now we can easily query all the people with red hair because they're on the same node, and the same with black hair. But now our application wants all the people named Tina, and now our developer has learned, so he's good and says, no, we don't have a table to query for a name, so let's make a table where the primary key is the name. And now we have two tables, one by name and one by hair, which makes it that both supports that we can query by name and by hair color. And this is actually the way you work with Cassandra. But then, since it's a hash function, you get really fast queries. So now let's have a demo of Cassandra. So let's go over here. So there are a lot of ways to install Cassandra. If you're on a Mac like me, I would suggest you installing Homebrew, in which you can just say brew install Cassandra. And now it's already installed, luckily for me. So we're going to use Python to query Cassandra, and the library we're going to use for that is called Cassandra driver. So you should say pip install Cassandra driver, and it's collecting it, installing it. Yeah, so finally we installed the Cassandra driver, and in order to query Cassandra using this Python driver, we first need to create some data. And we can do this using this tool called CQLSH that comes with Cassandra to create the databases that we want. And first, in order to create these databases, we need something called a key space. And you don't need to put much thought into what this is. We'll just create one called Northwind, because we're going to play with some of the data from the Northwind dataset. Yeah, so now we have the key space Northwind. We're also going to use it. So first we're going to create a table called orders with some data from the Northwind database. And in order to create the table, we need to specify the fields for it. And after we specify the fields, we need to set a primary key as mentioned earlier. So the primary key for this first table is going to be the order ID. And we're also going to copy some data from a CSV file from the Northwind dataset to this database. And we can also do this using this tool. And success, 830 rows was imported. Not huge data, but some data. So in order to demonstrate, we can select the first 5 orders, as we see here. Yeah, so let's start using the Python tool. In order to use this Cassandra driver, we're going to import some cluster class. And from this cluster class, we can initiate it. And with the given key space, Northwind, we can create a connection. Yeah. So with this connection, we're first going to extract the first orders, as we already did with the CQLSH tool. And then we're going to iterate over the orders and print some stuff about it. Yep, great, success. Now we can also find the order by a given order ID, which we're going to do in a similar way. As you see, it's almost like SQL, so these queries are actually identical to the SQL language. And we'll print some stuff about this specific order. Yeah, so now let's try, as with the exercises, to find all the orders made by this customer called ALFKey. So we're going to use a where clause again with customer ID and try to execute this query. But Cassandra doesn't want us to do this because we haven't set the customer ID as part of the primary key. So we need to create a specific table for this query to query by customer ID. And to do this, we go into the CQLSH tool again and create a table called orders by customer. And this table looks pretty similar to an orders table, but we're going to use another primary key. So we specify the primary key by first customer ID, and next we also need the order ID, since we know that there are multiple orders for the same customer, and we need all these orders in this table also. But let's see, we need to specify the key space, so let's do that. Then we'll reuse the query. Great. So now we have a table to query by customer, but we also need some data for this table. So let's do that. Whoops, need the CSV extension. Great, 830 rows. So let's go back to the Python terminal and try to query the ALFKey orders again. And great, we got some orders from ALFKey using this specific table. So now let's try to find all the ALFKey orders with specific ship name. So in the where clause, we also type the ship name. And when we execute the query, we get an error since we don't have the ship name as part of the primary key. So compared to many other database systems such as Neo4j, MongoDB, and relational databases, you need to put a lot of work into data modeling to support the queries that you need with Cassandra. So if you have small, big data, whatever that is, it might not be worth it to use Cassandra and put the extra work into it. But if you have really, really big data and you put that extra work into it, you're going to have really fast queries, and you're going to be able to scale for really, really big data. You can just ask Facebook, Netflix, and SoundCloud, which are already using it.